Good morning, everybody. So I just wanted to talk about the self-concept, how it relates to a sense of separation, and ultimately how it's unraveling, I guess. It's important to understand the human mind, the functionality of the body that creates thought. Obviously, the mind is non-localized, meaning it's not, it doesn't belong to the body. That's what non-duality is all about. Non-duality says the mind belongs to everything. It is also everything. So, and it is also composed of nothing. Scientists can't actually find it. But what we do know is that the study of the kind of neural activity of the brain does organize thought. And how does it do that? Well, basically, the mind is the whole subconscious, okay? So right now, even though you're listening to my words, looking at my body, or this body, if we want to use non-dual language, your mind is actually registering everything behind me, including these trees, maybe a little birdie here and there, and also everything in your room or where you are, and everything that it could be aware of right now. Potentially even a bunch of psychic impressions and linear things that could be floating around here and there. So that's the subconscious mind. It's the registration of everything. So that subconscious mind distributes this information. It sends it to two places. It'll send it to the conscious mind, meaning that which this illusory sense of I am is aware of, which we'll talk about the I am in a minute because that's the self-concept. And then it will also distribute it to the unconscious. If it deems the information not suitable or not necessary or potentially triggering or traumatizing, that's where that information will go. And then the conscious mind is a significant portion of the psyche, in the sense that is where our self-concept is developed. Of course, that conscious mind creates the personality or the ego or the part of the traits and behavioral understandings that are seen as suitable, acceptable, socialized, functional, lovable, and so forth. So when this unconscious unravels, meaning you get a huge trigger, a big emotional episode, someone really unreasonably upsets you, we're dealing with information that's been passed down into the unconscious and then potentially also repressed, especially if there was heavy trauma or some sort of survival threat to the child or adolescent or wherever that was just so threatening and so disturbing and so unsocialized and primitive that it had to be pushed far away. So emotional episodes and emotional triggers will come from that space. And that's why when we dream at night, we'll have images of, maybe scary figures or dark images or things that are trying to come out and reach the conscious or the conscious, because these repressed energies, they're always going to try and get out. They don't want to be down under. They don't want to be there. Their goal is to come up to the surface for light, for conscious presence. Okay? So, self-concept, what is that? So, the self-concept is basically pretty solidified when you get to the late 20s, 30s, 40s, you start to develop, familial units, independence, careers, and so forth. Your self-concept becomes the mechanism which determines your survival, your social standing, your confidence, your sense of power as an individual, okay? So in my last video, what I'm talking about from a non-dual perspective is a sense of powerlessness, okay? But from a relative standpoint of the self-concept, it is actually very healthy for that self-concept to have a sense of knowing what it is, a sense of a foundation of who it is in the relative sense. So it's important for Kate to understand herself in order to feel like she's able to have choices, make decisions, instigate changes, and have this sense of self, or the self-concept, which is the sense of power. And you see in children that hasn't been developed yet. You see a lot of children hanging out in the imagination and playtime and creative endeavors, art. Children love to draw. They love to play make-believe. They love to have fun. So they're doing that mostly from a unconscious standpoint, really. And that self-concept it simply isn't there yet. The child goes through its life, and we see at adolescence and the teenage years, lots of rebellion, lots of just breaking barriers and limits for the teenager as it's trying to find a self-concept, because that's how the human's socialized. It actually needs that in order to be in a healthy, albeit in my opinion, a bit unhealthy society. I don't actually think our society is healthy, okay? But we adapt to these programs because they give us that sense of safety and that sense of belonging, although of course it's illusory because it's fragile, it shifts, things come and go, and it's completely undependable, right? So there's a radical shift that happens when a person starts to explore the nature of the self. We first of all find that it is completely illusory. It's make-believe. It's a created thing, the self-concept. And then also it's completely not in alignment with reality, so it feels heavy. And so we call that, in non-duality, a sense of separation. But don't get locked in language ever, because what happens when you start to use certain terminology or language is, yes, it gives us meaning and it helps us communicate and get on the same page, but it also greatly limits you, because a word is always going to come with images and meanings. So be open-minded, keep an open mind as to how you see things. If the non-dual language isn't working for you, chuck it out. Make it your own. Do something with it that works for you. But yeah, the sense of separateness, all it is a self-concept. Hold on one moment here. It's actually pretty hot today, but there's about an hour left of some breeze. Good morning. Good morning. Before it gets to the triple digits. So yes, so we enter spirituality in some cases, and we create a very nice self-concept. We spiritualize who we think we are, and we make that a very lovable, acceptable, good image. Okay? Then we repress a bunch of crap while we do that, and then that's a whole nother thing. That's why you end up with a ton of exposés with spiritual teachers, because the truth is always the truth. If there's some screwy stuff going on in there, it's never going to go away until it's fully integrated. And it really actually doesn't even matter if it is or if it's not, but there is a greater sense of wholeness when we start to uncover these deeply repressed aspects of ourselves. So, okay, and then spirituality leads us down a dead end. And we're like, oh wait, being the good girl, being the good boy, it's not really working for me. That's a heavy task to undertake, and also an impossible one, because we're human, right? We still come from a very primitive, animalistic origin in terms of the body. So that's all still there. And these perfect images keep fracturing. So we're like, what the hell? Okay, I can't find the happiness and the freedom in the job anymore, or the kids, or the money, or the health, or whatever. And I can't find it in the self-concept, meaning the spiritualized self-concept of I am abundant, I am beautiful, I am this, and the whole affirmation thing. We can't find it there because that crackles. So what the hell do? We go to non-duality, okay? Self-concept unravels. Most of us completely unprepared for the shifts. And then it's like you lose that sense of self, and then you get lost. And then you get lost because without a self-concept or without a sense of self, you have nothing to rely on anymore. You have no real resources. At that point, if you continue on that path, which in my opinion, it's a very liberating place to be, even though it's very confusing and nobody can teach it to you and nobody can navigate it for you. And most likely it will be kind of messy, but at least it's real. It's real. And the two words that I'm going to put out here, and again, remember, words have meanings and images and ideas, so they're limiting, but it's to trust the path and to surrender to the path of the unknowable mystery that reveals itself beneath the self-concept, beneath this illusory sense of separateness. Because at this point, when you're at this level, where kind of everything gets chucked on its head, there are no rules. There are no rules anymore. Anything can happen and anything will happen. So this is where we come down to really hear, right here, what's happening. This becomes the new self-concept or the new foundation, but not what's happening in the sense of things that come and go out of this frame of reference, but just what's happening as this freedom of no longer dreaming. That's what's happening means. That's what this is it. That's what this is all about. All this is no longer a dream. So in non-duality, we can only negate it. We can't actually say what it is, because that will develop another self-concept and another image out of it. But here, there's no more images, no more words, right? And when I tell you the words trust and surrender, yes, these are spiritualized concepts, but it ends there. We don't really have anything else after that. Once you go past those two things, no rules, game over, okay? So that's the deal, back at the desert. Hope you enjoyed our morning chat, and that's really all I wanted to say today. So I will see you soon. Have a great weekend. Take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.